Discover the amazing transformative world of the Cambrian Explosion. Surprising life revealed. Nora Matthews sat behind the counter of the dilapidated diner, a cold cup of coffee in hand, watching the flickering neon sign struggle to hold its glow in the twilight. Outside, the empty streets of Cedarwood reflected the state of her heart, fading, desolate. Once, she'd had a clear vision, a dream to dive into the depths of the ocean as a marine biologist, unveiling the secrets of evolution. Now, her life's ambition felt like a lost artifact, buried beneath exhausting shifts and the raw ache of mourning. Just last year, she'd been a wife, a partner, a believer in the possible. That was before fate pressed its heavy hand on her life, leaving her grappling with 2 kids and an empty seat at the dinner table. The walls of their home echoed with the memories of her father, a historian whose vibrant stories of evolution had once quelled the shadows of uncertainty. She often found comfort in remembering the lilting tones of his voice, painting pictures of ancient worlds. Dust clung to the corners of their attic, harboring remnants of a time when dreams were alive. But recent days had turned that fading warmth into an insistent flame. Her children had uncovered an old journal, a tattered compilation of her father's thoughts on the Cambrian explosion, the pivotal moment when life in all its complexity began. The urge to reclaim her passion surged within her. She wanted to resurrect that flickering spark, to share her father's insights through a YouTube channel, a platform that seemed a lifeline. But every moment spent filming felt like a gamble. One weighed against the smirks of the townsfolk who saw it as an insult to her loss. Frivolous, they whispered, huddled in their groups, deeming a widow's dreams a mere fantasy. Yet her children cheered her on from the sidelines, innocent optimism fueling her drive, stuffing her pockets with bravery, even when she felt like a doll with its strings cut. But doubt knotted in her gut, twisting tighter when a former classmate, now a CO busy monopolizing technology, brushed her efforts aside as if they were dust on a distant shelf. "Are you truly serious about this, Nora? You think you'll break through with a hobby?" His laughter shattered her, an unrelenting echo in her mind. Irregular breathing filled the space as she hesitated, questioning. Who was she to grasp at these dreams now? Her resolve ebbed, the pressure from societal expectations suffocating her spirit. Nora's hands trembled as she prepared her script, thoughts whirling between hope and fear. Then twisted truths began to emerge, revealing that the startup her classmate led was plotting to erase local heritage sites deeply connected to her father's research, an act that felt like a personal betrayal. The anguish stirred inside her once again, igniting a fire that rekindled her sense of purpose. There was a legacy to defend, a future for her children, and an unspoken truth she longed to unravel. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The reality of standing against this corporate giant pressed down like a stone on her chest. Each video, each small inch of recognition brought moments of clarity. Comments from distant dreamers who resonated with her purpose. But beneath it all lay a current of anxiety, a frightful question stealing her breath. What if she failed? What if, in the end, she was just another shadow, overlooked and unheard, just like her late husband? The chaos of her fight was thickening, her emotions bubbling over as an unsettling revelation about her father's legacy emerged, leaving her rooted in a consuming dilemma. Would his past propel her to honor him and stake her claim, or would it ensnare her in the weight she feared most, being unworthy of the dreams she had to fight for? Nora sat at her kitchen table, remnants of her father's journal spread across its surface like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be assembled. The morning sun filtered through the window, illuminating notes on evolutionary patterns and sketches of fantastical creatures that had once thrived in primordial seas. The warmth of the light felt bittersweet, reminding her of both possibilities and what felt long lost. She took a deep breath, steadying herself against the rising tide of doubt. Her father's passion for marine biology and the environment had always captivated her, shaping her childhood into one filled with wonder and curiosity. To honor his legacy, she knew she had to act, yet the heaviness of her grief often rendered her paralyzed. The inner war mixed with a growing determination to reclaim her life was suffocating but necessary. With each passing day, the mounting pressure from her former classmate's laughter echoed in her mind like a dissonant chord, magnifying her insecurities. He had made it clear that he viewed her endeavor as frivolous, yet the whispers from the townsfolk stung deeper. How could they possibly grasp the weight of what she cherished? The urge to prove herself to them twisted in her stomach, a complicated blend of ambition and fear. This was not merely about her aspirations, nor just a battle against her former classmate's corporation. It was about defending her father's legacy and illuminating truths darkened by corporate greed. The stakes heightened when she learned of the impending demolition of the historic sites her father had meticulously documented. Those places were more than just patches of land. They were the roots of her family's history, teeming with stories that deserved to be shared. Nora's children, unaware of the looming threats, remained her anchor. Their laughter had become her lifeline, and their wide-eyed awe whenever she spoke of the ocean ignited a spark inside her. She imagined creating content that not only honored her father but educated her children about their heritage, an inheritance richer than any material possession. She could paint a vivid picture of the past, introducing them to the wonders of a world that once was. The thought offered a momentary reprieve from the brewing storm within. However, ambivalence clawed at her again. She envisioned herself in front of the camera, stammering over her words, a mere shadow of her once ideal self. What if her fear resonated through the screen, shaking her audience's faith? It dawned on her that failure was simply part of the journey. If anyone had a right to falter, it was her. But deeper than fear was a nascent resolve. With her children urging her forward and a renewed sense of purpose boiling beneath the surface, she turned her attention back to the journal. The pages held treasures of knowledge, her father's analyses of biodiversity during the Cambrian period, along with priceless anecdotes from his explorations. She felt a visceral connection drawing her to those words, almost as if he were guiding her, telling her to step beyond the shadow of her fears. Nora flipped the notebook closed, the sound firm against the table, sharpening her focus. She could transform her fears into a force, using them as fuel to light her path forward. But first, she had to confront the corporation eager to erase the very legacies she wished to uplift. An idea began to crystallize. If she amassed enough support, she could advocate for the preservation of those sites. It was time to reach out. The initial step frightened her, imagining the responses she might receive. Dismissive remarks or sympathetic nods. Yet, she realized she couldn't do herself, or her father, a disservice by holding back. She needed voices on her side, allies who believed in narratives worth preserving. With every beat of her heart, determination surged. This was no longer just about her. As she pulled out her phone to draft a message to local historians and environmental advocates, a thrilling realization struck her. She was finally ready to face the giants looming in her path. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she prepared to press send, the tension coiling tightly in her chest. She could almost hear her father's voice urging her on. What happened next would redefine everything for Nora Matthews. Would she embrace the legacy waiting to be discovered, or would she allow fear to silence her once more? The moment had come to initiate her ascent. Nora inhaled sharply, fingers poised over the screen, the weight of her apprehensions swirling in her mind. With a final surge of resolve, she pressed send, her heart racing as the notification vanished into the digital ether. It was done. She leaned back in her chair, momentarily breathless. A deep swell of vulnerability intertwined with exhilaration coursed through her. For a moment nothing happened. The room felt stagnant, filled with the muted sounds of life outside her window, as if the world held its breath alongside her. Curtains danced gently in the breeze, casting flickers of sunlight across the journal. Nora glanced at it, the pages now seeming more like mirrors reflecting portions of her own struggle. It wasn't merely about preserving her father's legacy. It felt like a confrontation with her own identity, like a wrestling match between fear and ambition. Then her phone vibrated, the shrill ping slicing through the silence. Nora's heart leapt as she snatched it up, diving into the responses like a diver penetrating still waters. Some of the messages were enthusiastic, others questioning, but the pulse of engagement was palpable. With every reply, she felt an electric spark, each one pulling her out of her cocoon of self-doubt. Amidst the exchanges, one reply stood out: a veteran marine biologist, Dr. Elaine Torres, whose message bubbled with excitement at the prospect of collaborating. Nora's fingers danced over the screen, her mind racing. This was an opportunity not just for her project, but for personal growth as well. Reluctance faded as her thoughts shifted to her interactions with Dr. Torres, who held a world of knowledge and experience. What could she learn from a woman who had navigated waves that threatened to crash over her own dreams? With renewed purpose, Nora drafted a thank you note, stifling her old insecurities. She recognized her desire for mentorship, and yet, the underlying worry gnawed at her. What if she was out of her depth? She had always been her father's daughter, but now, she needed to forge her own path. Each exchange nurtured a tenacious belief inside her perhaps she had something to offer. To prepare, she meticulously documented her father's findings, building a proposal enriched by his discoveries. As she immersed herself in those pages, a sense of empowerment washed over her like a tide pushing her closer to the shore. The ambition that once felt overwhelming began to take shape, each entry illuminating her purpose. Yet, beneath that newfound confidence, an unsettling noise from her past began to surface. She recalled every moment of ridicule, the laughter of her former classmate ringing in her ears, a reminder that ridicule had an uncanny way of embedding itself in the psyche. The fear grappled for acknowledgement, a visceral reminder that success wasn't a guarantee. Nora closed her eyes, the gaze of judgment still vivid in her mind, and inhaled deeply, allowing the air to fill her lungs. In that moment, she confronted her fear head-on. What if that ridicule transformed into respect when she proved them wrong? If she pressed on, each inch forward might silence their jibes, and in turn, reveal her own voice. Determined, she constructed a meeting with Dr. Torres, aware that it could be a turning point. Sitting with someone who had battled her own giants would prepare her for encounters ahead. She craved not only to uplift her father's legacy but to etch her own story into the narrative of marine conservation. The complexities of her task, the nuances of engagement, it no longer felt insurmountable. As she pressed send once more, Nora felt the tension morphing into excitement. What knowledge awaited her? Would she emerge from this in conversation with someone who had traveled paths she yearned to tread? The waiting game began, a dance of anticipation swirling within her. There was no turning back now. A spark of hope ignited within, but alongside it loomed the specter of her former classmate, murmuring doubt as she awaited Dr. Torres' response. The next steps would demand every ounce of courage she had summoned thus far. Was she prepared to unlock doors she had never dared to approach? The moment of truth approached, and with it, Nora realized something. The horizon held both danger and promise, and the time had come to confront what lay beyond. Nora's anticipation simmered as she paced around her small apartment, each step echoing the growing tension in her chest. The minutes dragged, each tick of the clock a steady reminder of the uncertainty that loomed over her future. It was a whimsical contradiction. The prospect of autonomy and exploration surrounding her meant little without the reassurance that she wasn't stepping into a perilous abyss. She grasped her phone firmly, ready to refresh her email for the umpteenth time. Nora's fingers hovered over the screen, doubts creeping back like shadows at dusk. What if Dr. Torres didn't find her proposal compelling? What if her father's work dissolved into irrelevance at the hands of a seasoned professional? It occurred to her that perhaps embracing this journey meant walking deliberately into the unknown, risking rejection for personal enlightenment. In her need for clarity, Nora turned back to her father's journal, the tattered pages imbued with memories of endless summer weekends filled with marine life observations. Each word he had meticulously crafted was a bridge toward his profound understanding, a treasure trove of knowledge that sought to replenish the ocean despite its dwindling resources. She had long admired his boldness, his unwavering passion for conservation, believing in an ecosystem's ability to recover. Perhaps she needed to embody a piece of that boldness as she cast her own net into these uncharted waters. With determined fingers, she began to draft her vision for their collaboration. It was not just a project, it was a movement, a revival of deep-sea exploration echoing the very emergence of life she now faced. Concepts whirled around in her mind, blending her father's insights with her own academic pursuits. The act of writing became cathartic, each stroke of the pen reinvigorating her sense of agency. Suddenly, her phone chimed, jolting her from her reverie. Nora's heart raced as she opened the email from Dr. Torres. As she scanned the words indicating a time for their call, adrenaline coursed through her veins. This moment could either lead to an alliance of shared aspirations or shatter her budding confidence. The gravity of what lay before her pressed down, but it also propelled her forward. Feeling an unsettling blend of eagerness and anxiety, she prepared meticulously for their conversation, each detail a crucial building block of her newfound identity. Nora practiced her pitch aloud, each iteration refining her message further. She reminded herself to share her vision clearly, to channel the command she had sensed when surrounded by her father's research. Yet introspection hung heavily in the air. The specter of her former classmate re-emerged, a whispering shade laced with derision, echoing the dismissals of old. What would she do if confronted with taunts once again? Would she have the assertiveness to stand tall against another's judgment? Her feelings twisted into a knot of resolve. Instead of evading the possibility of scorn, could she embrace it? It was possible that their ridicule was not a reflection of her competence but of their own insecurities. As the appointed time neared, Nora settled into her chair, the world outside her window fading into a blur. She took another deep breath and closed her eyes. The thrill of potential began to overshadow the doubt. What if this path led her into a deeper passion than she had ever realized? Dr. Torres represented the ultimate key, a chance to unlock her hidden capabilities. With newfound confidence, Nora pressed join on the virtual call link. The screen flickered, revealing Dr. Torres's warm smile. "Hello, Nora," the biologist said, her presence radiating warmth. "I'm excited to discuss your ideas." Nora felt a wave of encouragement wash over her. It was not only a meeting but a convergence of her past and future, a step toward realizing her father's legacy while forging her own path. Something unexpected surged within her, a burgeoning desire to prove herself, not just to Dr. Torres, but to herself. "Thank you, Dr. Torres. I've been looking forward to this," Nora replied, steadier than she felt. As they exchanged ideas, inaudible voices and shadows faded away. What new realizations awaited her in the subsequent dialogue? Would she find strength and validation in this unexpected partnership? The meeting was a veil lifting on hidden truths, her promise as potent as the ocean's vast possibilities. One question lingered. As the discussion unfolded, would she dare to articulate her deepest aspiration? The line between self-doubt and self-assertion had never before felt thinner. The tide of transformation approached swiftly, a test of courage that threatened to either drown her aspirations or carry them to remarkable new shores. What revelations awaited at the precipice of this opportunity? Nora's heart raced as she engaged in dialogue with Dr. Torres, the biologist's insights flowing like water from a wellspring of knowledge. Each statement propelled Nora further into a deepening sense of collaboration, turning her initial fears of inadequacy into a profound curiosity about the ocean's ecosystems and the potential for discovery that lay ahead. "Your father's research on kelp forests is fascinating, and it could play a pivotal role in our upcoming project," Dr. Torres said, her voice imbued with enthusiasm. The mention of her father took Nora by surprise. She had imagined her connection to his legacy as something to be discussed later, but now it felt crucial, a living thread weaving her past into her future. She could hear the echo of his voice in her head, urging her to seize the moment. I believe there's an untapped potential in the kelp forests that's crucial for climate change mitigation, Nora replied, her voice steadier than before. The confidence began to bloom within her as she shared ideas, intertwining her perspective with her father's work. Their conversation flowed seamlessly for several minutes, blending expertise and passion into a tapestry of potential. But with every exchange, Nora felt something simmer beneath her excitement, an awareness of the critical step she needed to take. Would she be bold enough to articulate her own vision, the one inspired by both her father and her academic ambitions? Dr. Torres, she interjected, pausing to find her words. I want to propose an ambitious expedition, the Cambrian Exploration. I think delving into the biodiversity of a kelp forest ecosystem at this time might yield groundbreaking insights about the resilience of marine life and conservation methods. The silence that followed felt charged. Nora held her breath, awaiting a response that could validate her ambition or leave her yearning for approval. Dr. Torres' eyes sparkled with interest. That's an innovative angle, Nora. The Cambrian Explosion symbolizes a crucial evolutionary period, driving the transformation of life on Earth. If you can tie that into our project on kelp forests, we could create a narrative that captivates not only scientific minds but also the public's imagination. The relief washed over Nora like the tides of the ocean. She had ventured into the realm of self-assertion, confronting her moments of self-doubt and finding strength in her voice. Rather than shrinking under potential scrutiny, she had planted her feet firmly in the shifting sands of ambition. Dr. Torres' encouraging response felt like validation, but amidst the budding confidence, an echo of doubt lingered. Could she maintain this momentum, or would past shadows seep back in? The call continued, with each exchange energizing Nora further. Ideas morphed into a collaborative vision, pushing her toward uncharted territories. Yet the thought of her former classmate's derision pulsed in the background, threatening to undermine her progress. She could almost hear those taunts, whispering in the recesses of her mind, questioning her authority. Ridding herself of the heaviness, she honed in on her thoughts. She could either concede her journey to insecurity or arm herself with the knowledge and conviction she was gaining. The decision was now clearer. With a fierce glint in her eyes, she indicated another possibility. What if we invited local schools to participate in research initiatives? It could both educate and inspire the next generation about marine conservation. Brilliant, Dr. Torres exclaimed. That's exactly the kind of outreach that could elevate our project and establish a connection with the community. Nora felt her pulse quicken. The vision was solidifying into something tangible, something real. Each stride was infused with the potential to resonate beyond academia, to make a meaningful impact. But the path laid in front of her was far from certain. An exhilarating force coursed through her, yet questions loomed in the distance. What would she need to face as they sought funding? Would skepticism rear its head? When the project transitioned from ideas to action. As their meeting came to a close, Dr. Torres smiled. Nora, I believe we have something special here. Let us start shaping our proposal. With the excitement of a new burden settled upon her, Nora felt the shift in her identity. She was no longer a passive observer of her father's work. She was an advocate ready to lead, ready to research, ready to challenge her own limits. The sea of uncertainty still stretched before her, but now it beckoned with the call of opportunity rather than dread. And as Nora hung up, invigorated yet aware of the uphill battle ahead, one question spiraled in her mind. Would she have what it took to confront the inevitable pushback that loomed at the edge of this burgeoning endeavor? Tomorrow, she would face more than just logistical hurdles. She would confront a deeper layer of herself waiting to rise to the occasion. Nora awoke early the next morning, the sun streaming through her window, illuminating the path ahead like a spotlight. The events of the previous day replayed in her mind, the exhilaration of sharing her ideas still fresh, yet now tinged with a sense of urgency to translate those dreams into tangible outcomes. She had fueled her ambition, but would it sustain her in the face of challenges? Sitting at her kitchen table, she set her notebook before her, the blank pages eager to be filled with plans. Her heart thudded with a familiar dance of excitement and trepidation as she took a deep breath and began to jot down potential logistical steps for the Cambrian exploration. Each note took form, mirroring the structure of her dreams and anchoring her vision in practicality. Yet as she mapped out the expedition's framework, doubt crept into the edges of her thoughts, whispering reminders of past failures and external skepticism. What if she miscalculated the funding? What if Dr. Torres reconsidered her proposal? Each what if felt like a heavy cloud, ominously shadowing her burgeoning confidence. In an attempt to combat the doubt, she opened her laptop and began researching successful grant proposals in marine biology. Immersing herself in stories of scholars who navigated similar waters reignited her determination. She discovered patterns in their narratives, how they overcame adversity and crafted compelling arguments. There was power in their journeys. It was becoming apparent that adversity was not just a block but a teacher. Then the name of a familiar figure flitted into her mind. Jeremy. His words from their last encounter hung over her like a persistent echo, questioning her authority and impending endeavors. That realization spurred her into action. She couldn't let his voice dictate her path. She closed her laptop, her newfound resolve cementing a plan to confront not just him, but the lingering doubts within her. Later, sitting across from Dr. Torres in a sunny cafe, she muttered under her breath, "You can do this," a mantra meant to drown out the insidious whispers of uncertainty. "Nora?" Dr. Torres's voice broke through her reverie, snapping her back to the moment. "You seem lost in thought. Let's talk specifics. I'd like to hear your strategy for approaching potential funders." Nora's heart raced at the challenge, an opportunity to assert her ideas. "Right, I have a detailed outline of why this project aligns with urgent climate goals. I think if we approach organizations focused on climate change, we can argue for both scientific merit and social responsibility." Impressed, Dr. Torres leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Can you tie in community engagement here? Highlighting a grassroots approach could resonate well." "Yes, that's where the school initiatives come in," Nora said, her voice gaining confidence as the conversation flowed. "I envision workshops for students to engage in real research projects, which can supplement the data we collect. It empowers them and elevates the project's impact." The dialogue became a dance, a fusion of ideas and aspirations. Every suggestion built upon the other, transforming Nora's outline into a resounding case for funding. As they finalized their plan, the feeling of empowerment surged through her. Dr. Torres's encouragement was a catalyst, but it was Nora's own resolve, her determination to branch out from under her father's legacy that truly ignited her spirit. She realized this was not just about pursuing her father's work, but about forging a path that honored it while claiming her own identity. But deep within, a tingling sensation of apprehension still lingered. Would potential funders be open to her vivacious ideas, or would they mirror Jeremy's skepticism? The thought festered, igniting a fire to prove him wrong. That evening, Nora found herself staring at a blank funding application. Anticipation mingled with anxiety crashing over her like waves. Would she dare to showcase the audacity of her ideas, or would she retreat into her old patterns of doubt? As she took a breath and began to outline her vision within the application, one unresolved thought loomed larger. What would she face in the scrutiny of others as she navigated this new and challenging territory? Nora's fingers hesitated over the keyboard, the keys a mosaic of her unfulfilled thoughts and ambitions. The weight of the application loomed larger than the cursor blinking back at her, each tick echoing her internal conflict. As the room filled with the low hum of evening, it was as though the shadows of doubt crept closer, whispering reminders of every critical gaze she had felt in her academic life. Staring at the vast emptiness of the document, she grappled with her apprehensions. How could she convey the urgency of the Cambrian exploration with the same enthusiasm that had fueled her initial inspiration? The thought of presenting something derivative, tarnished by other skepticism, made her stomach twist. Yet wasn't this why she had pushed herself to dive deeper? To prove that her voice deserved to be heard? As her thoughts circled, Nora found herself reflecting on her most recent conversation with Dr. Torres. The way her mentor had leaned in, intrigued. It was a subtle reminder that ideas could ignite passion in others. Nora was not merely an academic. She was an explorer of concepts and possibilities. Even the critics could be converted, she realized. Jeremy's derision could be an opportunity for growth. Determined, Nora plunged forward. She would not let the specter of Jeremy's doubt drown her ambition. She began typing with a flourish, weaving together her vision and solid evidence. The Cambrian Explosion represents a pivotal moment in biological history with implications for modern environmental challenges. She wrote, each word breathing life into her ideas. Slowly, her visions of workshops with local students and partnerships with climate-focused organizations solidified on the page. It was exhilarating. She was no longer just a product of her father's legacy, but creating her own narrative, one where her voice resonated equally within the scientific conversation. However, her fingers paused again as apprehension trickled back in. Each argument she constructed felt vulnerable, waiting for critique. Would funders understand her innovative approach? Or would they sidestep the unorthodox aspects of her proposal in favor of safer, more conventional projects? The unpredictable nature of her aspirations hovered like fog, thickening around her resolve. With a determined exhale, she considered the risk of rejection. Perhaps this vulnerability, a willingness to lay bare her fledgling ideas, was a strength rather than a weakness. There was no honor in half measures. True courage lay in proclaiming her hopes boldly. In moments of uncertainty, she often found clarity in forming a mental map. She would divide her proposal into sections: overview, objectives, methodologies, and anticipated outcomes. Each division became a stepping stone that would guide her through this uncharted territory. As she divided her thoughts, she visualized the project growing from the very foundations she laid. Pushing through the niggling self-doubt, Nora realized she was at a crossroads. Every chance she would take could lead to surprise and discovery, both in her work and within herself. Yet, the pulsing dread still simmered beneath her excitement. What if she bared her ambitions only to receive backlash? Her thoughts turned again to the discussions with Dr. Torres, how they inspired her to think bigger, bolder. There was potential for supportive advocacy to grow from this anxiety. Instead of cowering from the critics, could she invite them into her project? Present her ideas in a way that engaged both their intellect and skepticism? As she crafted the final revisions, someone knocked on her door, breaking the focus she had built. When she opened it, the familiar face of Jeremy greeted her. His slight smirk returned, and in that moment, a fierce resolve ignited within. She was ready to confront him not as the cautious academic defined by her father's legacy, but as a pioneer of her own journey. "Let us talk," she said, stepping aside to let him in. The moment had arrived. Would she falter in the face of criticism, or lean into her newfound determination? The air around her crackled with tension, and she was uncertain of the outcome. But Nora knew one thing for sure. She would no longer let fear dictate her path. The time had come not only to share her discoveries but to forge ahead, no matter the resistance. Nora closed the door behind Jeremy, her heart pounding as he settled into the chair across from her, a smirk still etched on his face. The familiarity of his arrogance stirred memories of their past exchanges, filled with skepticism and Rawlings' eyes. But today something felt different. She had shed the weight of her father's expectations and the tight confines of self-doubt. Instead, she was prepared, internally fortified by her recent reflections and the spark ignited by Dr. Torres' mentorship. "What's on your mind, Nora?" Jeremy leaned back, crossing his arms, clearly ready to dissect her thoughts with the clinical precision of a critic. His casual demeanor only fueled the steady fire growing within her. She inhaled deeply, recalling her structured proposal, meticulously crafted to showcase the groundbreaking significance of the Cambrian Explosion. "I wanted to share my research idea," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of nerves. "It centers on the Cambrian Explosion and its implications for modern biodiversity and environmental resilience." The smirk slightly faded, replaced by an arching brow. "Really? You think that S going to captivate anyone outside of a hyper-specialized seminar? He had dismissed her immediately, but she recognized this moment for what it was. A test. Time to rise. Yes, I do, she responded, her tone firmer, because it's not just about the explosion itself. It's about how those ancient ecosystems can inform our approach to contemporary ecological crises. We can learn from nature's adaptive strategies. Jeremy leaned forward, skepticism etched into his features. And what makes your angle any different from what's already been published? The competition is fierce. Nora took a breath, seeing this as a challenge rather than criticism. That's the point. My proposal isn't merely a rehashing of past work. While existing literature focuses mostly on the what, I want to explore the how and why behind the Cambrian organism's survival and diversification patterns. Furthermore, I plan to incorporate interactive workshops to engage young students in ecological concepts through hands-on experiences. With each articulation of her plan, she began to feel the hesitations of her past slip further away, replaced by a growing confidence. She had no qualms in articulating a vision that embraced innovation. Imagine students not just learning about evolution from textbooks but actively participating in small experiments mirroring ancient ecosystems. They could grasp complex scientific concepts and their relevance to current environmental challenges, bridging the gap between past crises and our present. Jeremy's expression shifted slightly, curiosity replacing disdain. It sounds ambitious, but how do you plan to execute that? Where's your backing for funding? This was the full-on confrontation she had hoped for, the opportunity to unfold her strategy. That's where I think I can transform criticism into collaboration, she said, her focus steady. By inviting experts from various fields and aligning with climate organizations, I will create a multidisciplinary approach. Funders are looking for innovative, collaborative projects. If we create a narrative that resonates broadly, we can attract interest from outside traditional academic circles. As she continued outlining her vision, she saw Jeremy's skepticism begin to waver. Though he wouldn't readily concede, she could see his intellectual gears turning, assessing the potential. It felt liberating not just to share her ideas, but to actively hold space for dialogue, to challenge misconceptions rather than retreat into half-defined sentiments. I'll give you this, Jeremy finally admitted, leaning back with an inscrutable expression. You're not just talking theory. You've got a plan. But there's still the matter of execution. Putting it into practice alongside the scientific message will be the real challenge. Nora nodded, aware that every aspect of her proposal required careful planning and implementation. But that's where collaborations come in. I know I can mobilize resources and motivate others to join in. It's time to bring new voices into the conversation. He paused, contemplating her words. The shadows of past interactions lingered, yet she could see a potential glimmer of respect emerging within him. You might just be onto something, Nora, he replied, his tone neutral, yet lacking the earlier derision. As they delved deeper into a discussion about the feasibility and ramifications of her proposal, Nora felt a click, each cerebral exchange chiseling away at her insecurities. She was challenges embodied. Her ideas were valid, grounded in her experiences and research. Yet, just as she began envisioning the future where her proposal gained traction, Jeremy brought up a stark question. What if you fail? What's your backup plan? The air thickened with tension as the reality of his inquiry hit her. Was she truly prepared for the worst? Would she withstand the fallout or allow it to crush her dreams? In that moment, with renewed clarity about her ambitions, she realized that every great venture came with inherent risks. The next leap embracing her vulnerabilities, charged with a desire to prove both herself and her concept, stood before her like a precipice. With their conversation lingering in the air, her resolve hardened. She would not only rise to the challenge but use any setbacks as stepping stones to fortify her mission. The conversation had opened a new chapter, and she could see now that the real journey was just beginning. What lay ahead was unknown yet pulsating with possibility. Would she find the courage to push through eventual rejection and emerge stronger? The thought sparked an exhilarating dread within her, a hunger to confront whatever awaited her beyond the horizon. The days following her meeting with Jeremy became a whirlwind of growth and introspection for Nora. She threw herself into research, devouring papers on ancient ecosystems with a fervor she hadn't felt in years. Each new study opened her eyes to the depth of her subject and ignited her imagination. Yet, alongside this illumination, the gnawing specter of self-doubt resurfaced, often whispering bitter criticisms just as she began to feel she was on solid ground. With each hour spent immersed in her work, she addressed Jeremy's parting question in her mind. What if she failed? Could she endure the fallout? Confronting her anxiety became essential, preventing it from morphing into debilitating fear. She kept her journal close, pouring thoughts onto its pages in a desperate bid for clarity. "Failure is not a dead end," she wrote one evening, the words stark against the white of the page. "It's a step towards evolution." Repeating these affirmations internally began to reshape her perspective. Nora reached out to potential collaborators, her confidence manifesting in well-crafted emails explaining her vision. Engaging with fellow researchers and educators was both exhilarating and terrifying. The first few responses were lukewarm. The kindness wrapped in polite criticism stung more than she anticipated. Yet, instead of retreating, she pushed through each rejection, much like the organisms she studied surviving against the odds. One afternoon, she received a reply from an established ecologist interested in her project. Dr. Silva had authored several papers on evolutionary resilience and was intrigued by her proposal. The excitement surged through Nora like electricity. She couldn't let this opportunity slip through her fingers. A meeting was set for the following week. The prospect of collaboration with a respected voice in her field sent her pulse racing, each heartbeat echoing self-doubt in her ear. The morning of their conversation was marked by a gnawing sense of apprehension. What if Dr. Silva saw her as inexperienced? What if her ideas crumbled under scrutiny? The meeting commenced in a cozy coffee shop, sunlight filtering through tall windows like a warm embrace. Dr. Silva was graciously encouraging, and Nora gradually saw her own ideas reflected in the seasoned researcher's questions and insights. Nora spoke animatedly about her objectives, emphasizing the importance of integrating hands-on learning experiences. Dr. Silva listened closely, nodding at intervals, allowing Nora's passion to fill the air between them. Then, as if the universe was testing her resolve, Dr. Silva posed a question that struck deep. What happens if your students don't take an interest? If this doesn't resonate with them? Her mind skated across a chilling what-if landscape. What if her carefully crafted vision stumbled because of indifference? Was she truly equipped to inspire a generation when she was still grappling with her own uncertainties? Realizing the significance of the moment, she took a breath. That risk exists, but isn't it our responsibility as educators to ignite curiosity? To make the past relevant in ways that compel them to engage? The conviction in her voice began to rise, fortified by her unique blend of fear and hope. Dr. Silva's smile broadened, a genuine warmth shining through. That's the spirit, Nora. This is about resilience, after all, both in ecosystems and in us. As their discussion continued, Nora's worries began to dissipate. She discovered that Dr. Silva had faced similar challenges early in her career, and they swapped stories of setbacks and breakthroughs, each anecdote tightening their bond. After their meeting ended, Nora floated back into the world, the sun appearing brighter, filled with whispers of promise. It was no longer just her idea she championed. It represented a larger narrative waiting to unfold. However, that bubbling excitement was punctuated by a pit of anxiety. Nora understood that her proposal's success depended not just on her plans, but also on her ability to connect with her audience. For her idea to soar, she needed to confront deeper vulnerabilities, the innate fears of rejection and invisibility, the very real possibility of failing to instill a lasting fire in her students loomed heavy. As this new internal battle began to take shape, she resolved to not only embrace failure but to see it as a teaching tool, another step in her evolution. Yet, even with this redemptive mindset, another daunting question lingered. Would others see her vision's potential as she did? Or would she stand alone in this pursuit? The thought wrapped around her like a vice, urging her to keep moving forward, while reminding her that the night held many uncertainties ahead. The next leg of this journey would not just hinge on research or collaboration, but on how bravely she could present a narrative that entwined the past with future aspirations. As she walked home, the spark of possibility ignited by Dr. Silva's encouragement nourished her resolve, even as its flicker felt fragile. What awaited Nora in the uncharted territory of public engagement? Did she have the strength to navigate the complexities of connecting with students, to face the challenge of resonance? The urgency of her next steps loomed like a shadow, growing larger with every stride. Nora Matthews stood before her laptop, the screen illuminating her determination as she typed the final lines of her project proposal. The Cambrian Explosion, an intricate tapestry weaving together the legacy of her father and her own aspirations, had transformed from an unformed dream into a structured reality. Every detail mattered. Every word resonated with purpose. She had crafted an initiative to educate future generations about marine conservation, highlighting the lessons of resilience drawn from ancient ecosystems. The resonance of Dr. Silva's endorsement echoed in her mind, affirming her instincts, but the storm of apprehension still churned within her. As she clicked send to distribute her proposal to a range of local educational institutions, a stream of anxiety rushed through her veins. What if they dismissed her vision? What if they couldn't see the importance of bridging the past with the present? But this time, there was a distinct shift within her, a growing confidence that stemmed not just from the praise she had received but from the very act of standing her ground. Revisiting the lessons she had absorbed in recent weeks, she shifted her focus to the power of vulnerability. Instead of dreading rejection, she began to embrace it as an inevitable part of growth. The thought alone was liberating. Days rolled by, punctuated by the steady stream of emails from schools, local organizations, and potential advocates. Some responses were enthusiastic, affirming her belief in the power and importance of her project. Others felt lukewarm, challenging her execution plans and questioning the relevancy of her ideas. Yet, Nora took each piece of feedback as an opportunity to refine her approach rather than as roadblocks. Her children became her primary audience as she practiced her presentation, transforming their living room into an impromptu stage. They listened with rapture, eyes wide with excitement as she explained the wonders of the Cambrian Explosion and how it connected with their own environment. Their laughter and encouragement fueled her ambition, reminding her that this journey was about more than academic success. It was about connecting hearts to knowledge. However, on one quiet afternoon, the reality of her journey came crashing down with a message from Jeremy. "I can't help but wonder how long this phase will last for you, Nora. Will you still care as much once the novelty wears off?" His words dripped with condescension, but instead of being rattled, something inside her solidified. This was the moment where conviction must triumph over doubt. "That phase is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, defying the nagging frustration of his skepticism. It was apparent to her now. Her commitment to this work transcended fleeting enthusiasm. The connections she had forged with Dr. Torres, Dr. Silva, and her children solidified her transformation not merely as her father's daughter, but as Nora Matthews, an advocate ready to reclaim her narrative. The emotional tide shifted as she prepared the final version of her presentation for a local school board meeting, an event that felt like a crucible moment. Standing in front of her audience, she felt nervous yet empowered. She spoke passionately about the Cambrian period, interspersed with her vision of workshops that invited children to witness for themselves the links between historic ecosystems and modern challenges. As the presentation concluded, she could see nods of interest in the crowd, and her heart soared. This was her truth, shared openly and boldly. Their eventual decision was unanimous: they would support her initiative. An exhilarating wave rushed through her as she turned from the podium, her journey not just validated but celebrated. Weeks later, standing alongside volunteers and students at their first workshop, Nora felt a sense of fulfillment permeate her being. The laughter ringing in the air and the sparkle in the children's eyes conveyed their engagement with the topics she had feared would fail to resonate. They were excited. They were connected. Nora had not just reclaimed her passion. She had built a platform for others' kids learning about the ocean and its secrets while recognizing the value of the world their ancestors inhabited. Each child asking questions fueled her enthusiasm, reaffirming that the stories she shared mattered. The acknowledgement came when Dr. Torres mentioned a potential collaboration with national organizations, a significant opportunity to expand the reach of the Cambrian exploration. With her children cheering her on and messages of support flooding in from viewers of her YouTube channel, Nora felt an overwhelming sense of achievement. She had transcended her past. Nora Matthews was no longer just a widow in a small town grappling with grief. She was a recognized figure in marine conservation, a leader inspiring the next generation. She had conquered self-doubt, transforming it into renewed purpose, and demonstrated that her father's legacy was alive, innovatively interwoven with her aspirations. As she breathed in the salty air surrounding them, she reflected on her journey. This wasn't simply a personal vendetta against the doubts cast upon her. It was a testament to the resilience she had cultivated. She had proved to herself that both her voice and her ideas were indispensable, transforming dreams into real-world impact. Now, standing at the edge of possibilities, Nora recognized her growth. She had become a force of nature for her children, embodying the very essence of what she wished to impart to them. Inspired and invigorated, she let the waves wash over her resolve. It was time to embrace new opportunities, to ignite more curiosity, and to dive deeper into the boundless mysteries of the marine world. The journey would continue, and she was ready to face whatever came next. So what are you waiting for? You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these transformative tales. Comment below your reactions and theories about how Nora's future will unfold. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.